Welcome into episode 357 of the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network, presented by, as always, our friends at Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio, here for a new matinee version of Sources Say. I know we're in the middle of crossover season where things are just absolutely chaotic, where there is no rhyme or reason to the basketball schedule. One day the game is on a Wednesday, the next it's on a Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Thursday. There is no rhyme or reason here as we try to juggle the football podcast that Nick, Adam, Drew, the football 11 personnel, the pick'em games, like they do such a great job, but dealing with the mass chaos that is scheduling all these shows in the middle of this crossover season is quite hectic through the late area of October and into November. So bear with us as we just kind of try to give as much content as possible. And, the more the merrier here on the KSR YouTube channel. Appreciate everybody tuning in for this early matinee edition of Sources Say, because we have a lot to talk about. It was a very, very fun night at Rupp Arena. Kentucky gets tested in a win over Minnesota State, a 31-point win. It wasn't quite the 70-point blowout that we were maybe hoping for after seeing how they performed against Kentucky Wesleyan, but still had an absolute ball inside Rupp Arena. As I said, Jack Pilgrim here. Shawn Smith is joining us very, very shortly. But until then, just want to let you guys know Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money and 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations to special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You get to pick which sport you want to support when you sign up. Choose your sport and support with Club Blue. Let's dig into it. We're going to get Shawn on here in just a second. We're having a mad dash. He's leaving Frederick Douglass right now, so we're kind of coordinating the schedule for him to, as he rolls into the house, he'll be able to join along with us. So let's run through just some of the early, quick, big picture takeaways of the 98-67 win over Minnesota State. Again, reigning national champions at the D2 level. Mark Pope talked going into the exhibition slate that he wanted to get exposed. He wanted to see this team challenged in different ways, maybe not the high-profile exhibition matchups that we're seeing across college basketball. We'll talk to him on Thursday, maybe about like, how do we, is that something you're going to want to pursue moving forward? Is this the model that you like, having kind of Division II national champs, high-profile programs at kind of a lower level where you get a real tune-up opportunity without much pushback? Or would you rather have, the Kansas versus Arkansas types of matchups that we're seeing across college basketball? We'll dig in a little bit about that with him on Thursday, but nothing you can do about the competition level. But given the Division II level, there isn't a better opportunity you can have than the reigning national champions, Minnesota State. A lot of talent, a lot of returning talent. That's a championship pedigree coach that's been there forever, 400 plus wins, and just knows how to do it at that level. So you got to get their best shot, especially early on. I love that, when Mark Pope says that you want to see this team get exposed, you get to see that after 9 minutes, 10 minutes, where it is a 1-point game, that first segment of the first half, where you kind of get a little tightness, little rust, some uncomfort there at Rupp Arena, where you can kind of start to say, okay, well, this is not going to be the 70-point blowout that we saw the other night. This is going to be definitely a different approach than what we're used to seeing. So Kentucky got a shot. Kentucky got a punch to the face, got to kind of see how they'd react, turn the ball over 5 times in the first 9 minutes, which matched the entire game effort that we saw against Kentucky Wesleyan when they turned the ball over 5 times against Kentucky Wesleyan. So you got to see them play sloppy. You got to see them not make shots, and just kind of, as Mark Pope described it, it got weird. It got mucked up. They got out of sorts. And we got to see just kind of how they'd react to that, where they got the first punch in the face, and it was, okay, how do we settle ourselves down? How do we get ourselves back in the rhythm and back in the flow of things to get our offense off and get back to the system that we know and love, where we can launch threes and make shots and rack up the assist totals and things like that. So I love that we got that early adversity. I don't think that there's anything to learn about this team if you win both games by 70 points. You need some type of hurdle and some type of adversity. So for them to have those first 10 minutes of the game is exactly what you're looking for in an exhibition matchup. And then Jackson Robinson happens. Jackson is a guy that you knew the value that he brought to the table when we stay up till 3:00 in the morning that night, when at the draft decision deadline, when we're waiting to see what in the heck he's going to do. Is Kentucky going to be able to land him? And the reason why you stay as patient and kind of just push all of your chips in on a guy like that is for what we saw last night at Rupp Arena, a guy that when push comes to shove, when adversity strikes and you're kind of just looking for some type of meshing, some type of continuity, a safety net, if you will, to have a guy like Jackson to say, I got this. You guys stop stressing, stop worrying. I'll take it from here. And to just rattle off 15 points in the first half, then wrap up with 24 on 8 of 13 shooting, 8 of 12 from 3, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. He was tremendous. He was exactly as advertised. He was the pro that we all kind of knew and said, well, man, you really hope that a team doesn't just fall in love with his shooting ability in the draft. And, he kind of sneaks in the second round and says, now is my time. You really wanted him to kind of take one last shot at the college game, playing for a bigger profile at Kentucky. And that's exactly what you wanted to see. And it just kind of makes you feel so much more comfortable about everything else kind of falling into place. Because when you talk to the players after the game, you talk to the coaches after the game, and they say, that's what you come to expect from Jackson. That's every single day out of him in practice. There is no questioning whether he's going to show up or whether he's going to give you the scoring punch that you're looking for. That is Jackson Robinson day in, day out. So to get that from him when we kind of see the ship rocking a little bit was the perfect scenario. To kind of keep the ship afloat to start the game, it was Otega Oweh of all people. He follows up his absolutely tremendous opening exhibition matchup against Kentucky Wesleyan with yet another really, really impressive performance. 15 points, 7 of 8 shooting, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, and no turnovers. Otega was a guy that was kind of the wild card when he signed with Kentucky. We knew that he was a tremendous athlete. We knew that he liked to get downhill, finish pretty well around the basket, solid defender. But what could he be as kind of a primary piece out of Kentucky? Could you lean on that guy to kind of, as we've talked about with Jackson, when push comes to shove, you need somebody to get you rolling? Can Otega be that guy? Can he be the kind of middle ground type of guy that Jackson's going to be the high level scorer, but can he muck things up as a defender? Can he be a playmaker? Can he be a facilitator? Can he do this? Can he do that? The kind of all hands on deck guy. That was the big question mark with Otega. Can he be that level of player for Kentucky? And through 2 exhibition games, you want to see this sustained. You want to be able to, you hope that that's something that we could see out of him day in and day out. But I don't know why he wouldn't be able to get downhill against any type of competition the way he is right now. I don't know why he wouldn't be able to defend the way he is right now. That's just kind of been his personality. That's been his MO. Otega has been kind of the sneaky MVP through two exhibition games, knowing what you know about Jackson Robinson and the consistency out of him. And then obviously Lamont Butler, the exact same way as kind of the defender and as kind of PG1 as your lead guard. Otega has definitely been the third star of that group, if you will, Shawn. Oh, hey, Shawn. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, so I'm assuming we're talking about Otega Oweh because he was I thought he was really good. And got off to a good start, obviously, in the first one, but then last night you got to see some of the things that he does well and getting to the rim jack. I know he had an and one off of a jumper, just a tough player that I think adds an element of toughness alongside Lamont Butler in the backcourt. And I think when you're talking about starting guards for this program, it's pretty hard to not start with those two and what they do in addition to the different type of style that Jackson Robinson had. So, no, I thought Otega was great. Again, obviously Jackson's going to get a lot of the attention just because he's that good. And some of the shots that he hits, especially one from the coach's box along the sideline, that we will get into. But the thing that cannot go unnoticed, and I think a lot of times this season it will, because I think Otega is going to be so consistent. His game jack and what he adds, he just does so much for this team, and you're seeing it early on, just how big his impact is going to be across the full length of the season.
Yeah, and we talked to start the show, my little mini monologue just about the importance of getting down early, not down necessarily, but having it be a kind of back and forth haymaker after a haymaker thrown both directions, where it's just a really sloppy start, turning the ball over, is not making shots at the rate or the volume that you necessarily like. They were kind of slowed down a little bit and really just needed somebody to kind of take things off. Obviously, Jackson Robinson was that guy, but Otega was the guy to kind of keep the ship steady early on. I mean, just getting downhill, finishing in the basket, mucking things up defensively to not let things get out of hand necessarily, given the competition. Like, we understand all of this is relative. Like, we know that this is an SEC competition. Brian Mullen says in the chat, let's see them fight back down 20 against an SEC team. Then I'll feel comfortable then. Yeah, like, obviously we know that. Like, we know that the first real test is going to be November 12th, State Farm Arena, Atlanta. Like, we know that's going to be the matchup where all eyes in the college basketball world are going to be on our program then. But we got to take what is handed to us at this point. And the test that Kentucky got in those first 9, 10, 11 minutes is exactly what we wanted to see out of this group, and what Pope said at an SEC Media Day when he said, I want to see my team get exposed. They got exposed and then turned that into a 40-point second half lead.
No, I mean, you got some questions answered, and we know that you're not going to get certain ones answered until you play certain opponents and certain teams, and we know that those are coming here relatively sooner rather than later. But, I mean, you played a defending national champion. Regardless of level that they play at, like, that was a well-coached team, a coach that's been there and built success over a period of time and been recognized for his accomplishments. And you got a program that their last game was winning a championship. I mean, you're going to get tested the best you can in exhibition play. It was a step up, obviously, in competition from game one, and you saw some growth. Even though the score didn't reflect a 71-point win, it's a 31-point win against a team that's trying to sharpen its sword and get ready for its own season. So I thought Kentucky got out of the exhibition games exactly what it wanted. And I think it has some things answered. I mean, Trent Noah, he didn't get the same opportunity in game one that he got in game two. So from the way he closed game one, Jack, he gets a little bit sooner and earlier of an opportunity, and he missed a couple of shots, and then he hits a big shot that really kind of got Kentucky rolling there. He showed that he can defend. So you use these two exhibition games. It's a total of 80 minutes, and you just try to answer as many questions as you can about your team. And I feel like Kentucky answered a lot. And one that was answered for me last night was seeing Kerr out there and seeing him play, and just how much quicker Kentucky gets at pushing the pace when he's on the floor. Like, we talked all summer and all offseason about the different options that Pope is going to have with this backcourt and in the front court. And obviously we'll get to that. I don't know how much you got into this about Amari at the beginning, but didn't get to see Amari last night. So you had to see Brandon Garrison, a guy that maybe has been labeled as the long-term project on this roster that can develop and has a high upside, but not really sure what his immediate impact will be. Well, you got to see a little bit of it. You also got to see it without Kerr, but you also got to see what Kentucky looks like with Kerr and the different ways that they can play. But I think that what you got out of these two exhibitions is you've got some confidence. These fans already love this team. The way the ball moves, it's constantly moving. Guys are making the right pass at all times. I mean, the assist numbers, what would the assist total end up being? It was almost assists per shot.
28-8 assist to turnover. But
yeah,
the eight is a little misleading because A, it was 5 in the first 9 minutes.
Yeah.
B, one of those was a shot clock violation, so it wasn't even attributed to a single player. And C, one of the last one of the game was the shot clock violation at the end of regulation. So it was 7 turnovers in real time basketball, 6 attributed to individual players.
Yeah, and like you said, some of them early, right? Like there was some sloppy play going on those first 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, they had one possession early where their spacing was poor in transition, and I think the ball was dribbled off of somebody's foot.
Mhm.
Right there, I can't remember who's it hit in the middle of the floor, but you had some things there, but a lot of the same things that we said from game 1, Jack, I saw the consistency carry over to game 2 when it comes to the offensive end of the floor in transition. This team is just so good in the open floor. Maybe they don't have the dudes that's going to go put it on your head at the rim. They have some like that, but maybe they don't have, a large group of them. Sorry, I don't know if you could hear that. I had my email pulled up, but it hurt it. My internet freaked me out.
No, you're good.
So, but you saw guys sprinting to the corner and getting in transition. And those sprints to the corner got other guys shots stepping in. It got opportunities on the wing. Jackson Robinson, listen, every time he shoots the ball right now, I think it's going in. The way he's able to get his feet set, the shot he pulled from the coach's box, that's just an unreal shot. And he's not really got a whole lot going to the basket yet. But you're getting this on tape that, oh man, this guy's pulling it from 25 feet now. So how
Well, there
hard
was
is he going
that
to be to
one.
guard?
That one in the deep corner three where he caught it and like was off balance, almost behind the basket. And when you kind of get yourself into a rhythm the way that he did there, it is kind of like it doesn't matter where he is on the floor. He could be 35 feet away. He could be in the deep corner behind the basket. Dude was going to make whatever he launched up. And it just, the like you said, the comfort level of having a guy like that of his caliber hitting pro shots. I mean, contested, wide open. There's some people complaining about like, well, will he be able to get these shots off in the SEC versus against a D2 opponent? Yes, he is. He will. He did against Big 12 competition. He will get these shots off. So what we're seeing with Jackson right now is what we're going to see in the SEC. That's the value of having a guy like him.
Well, and I keep getting asked about, does Kentucky have the guys that can just go hunt shots and make shots and get them? And clearly Jackson would be the guy that leads the charge, right? Like that's the guy that if you need a basket, and you saw the exact same thing, he got the exact same shot off some of that double away action where I think it was Andrew Carr curled it and then he twirls back off of it. And it's just when you got the right pieces in the right spots, you're going to get good looks in this system. And Jackson, to me, Jack, has elevated his game from his time at BYU. I've seen it kind of transform and elevate just in 2 short exhibition games. I know the competition hasn't been what it's going to be when you get into December, you get into league play, but just from watching him play, the shots that he's making, there was one where he kind of drifts to the corner and quickly got his feet set and knocked down a 3 last night. Like he's showing you moving to his left, moving to his right, stepping in 25 feet. At some point, you're going to see the Jackson Robinson in the mid-level when he's coming off of some of these actions and a guy's on his hip and he's getting downhill and he's reading defenses, he's getting to floaters and he's getting to the rim and finishing with his left and right hand. You're going to see that balance take over offensively as well. And that's when you get to see his complete game. But right now, he's showing you the ability to stretch it. Kentucky's showing you the ability to stretch it as a team, even though they missed some shots early. The one thing that I was asked about, what happens when they're not hitting shots? And I said, just stay true to who you are. Keep shooting and taking those shots, and they start falling. You got an example of that last night. And you can go as deep as 8, 9, 10 on the roster, and that guy that comes in is able to take and make shots. Trent Noah, he will take and make shots for this team if he's going to get minutes. So I think there's still a little bit that you got to kind of iron out, but before you get into, Duke, and you've got some looks here before you get to that game. Get Kerr worked in a little bit more, Jack. But the pace that they played at when he went in the game, the pace went up when he played. So you're going to get a little bit of a change of pace. And then Lamont's just doing Lamont's thing, right? Like Lamont's just so physically. He won a box out where he was fighting defensively, and he was on the offensive player's back and somehow worked his way around front as a guard and won that. Brandon Garrison lost one similar to that a few possessions before, but you're seeing the veteran guy who's played 5 years of college basketball understanding positioning. But I liked what I saw. I liked when I went back and watched the tape. Like I think that there was a lot of good from the second exhibition to carry over to season opener next week.
And I do want to just address the elephant in the room with Amari Williams. Goes down with a leg injury 3 minutes in, because I mean he is the catalyst for a lot of what Kentucky does offensively, and just the system does. He is the straw that stirs the drink in a way that we talked about with Trey Mitchell last year at his peak early on in the year. Very similar to Amari Williams, where when he ain't in, the team just not isn't what it should be. It's not the well-oiled machine that so much is leaning on Amari Williams' health. So when he did go down in what appeared to be, from my perspective, up in the nosebleeds, a bang knee situation, we saw him go back to the locker room. He comes back out early, leading up to halftime. He's riding the exercise bike. He's sitting on the bench with his teammates in the second half, up and down, with the getting up in the team huddle and everything. Mark Pope says after the game he believes he's fine. Early x-rays came back negative, nothing overly concerning initially, and just some follow-up imaging today just to double triple check, but all signs are positive. Very, very positive. Just kind of one of those in the moment scares more than anything, I think, because of the importance of Amari Williams and how much does center on kind of focus on Amari and just kind of the grand scheme of things and his importance in the offense. So I think the initial scare was more than like the actual reality of how hurt he was. So I think he'll be fine. I think it's going to be just one of those things where, like with Kerr Kriisa, how much are you going to lean on him? How quickly you're going to lean on him when you go through something like that? Like Kerr tweaks his hamstring, probably could have played in the blue-white game, definitely could have played in the Kentucky Wesleyan game, but like, are you going to rush that guy back just for the sake of doing so in a game that doesn't count? Similar to Amari Williams, where maybe it's a little bit more severe, but it's also Wright State versus a Duke a week later. Like, do you want to maybe hold him out early, especially knowing now what we know about Brandon Garrison, the way he can step up in his absence, knowing that the long game with Amari is the most important thing. You cannot lose him for an extended period of time before you start getting legitimately concerned about the long-term impact of that. But I don't think that's going to be the case. But in terms of when he actually suits back up for the Cats, it could be in the opener Wright State. But, definitely something that you got to be cautious with, knowing the importance of that guy above all else.
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't want to do something. And here's the thing, right? Like this, each team in college basketball, you're going to have some injury concerns. Maybe some guys haven't stepped on the floor in the preseason and they're trying to work their way back, or you're going to have some bumps and some ankles being rolled and things like that throughout the season. But right now it's just so early that you want to be cautious, but you also know that you have a tough game coming up. And if someone's ready to roll, like I didn't know if Kerr would be out there last night. And then you see him out there getting that opportunity, and you got to see a taste of what he can add to Kentucky. Amari's the same way. Kentucky's different without Amari. Like, it forces guys into roles like, Brandon Garrison. I'm not sure that he's entirely ready for the role that he would have if Amari's unable to play. But if you're without Amari, it gives Brandon an opportunity to get his feet wet, and maybe it makes you a better team in the long run when you get those minutes. But Jack, when it comes to taking care of what this team can be, I feel like it's more important to get yourself right and get healthy for that stretch run, and not really force somebody, in there if they're not ready to go. But when he went down last night, and anytime you see somebody limping off, you're thinking, oh no, like, let's hope this isn't anything serious. And he does change Kentucky. And that's another thing too. Like, does that kind of disrupt the rhythm early without having him on the floor? It forces guys into different roles, and the minutes change a little bit. But overall, I think the big thing is just to kind of be patient here. We'll see what happens with it. And Duke is the big checkpoint. That's the one that you want to be ready for. But if for some reason he's not, at least you got a game or two here to kind of figure out, what things look like. But working Kerr back in, and then we'll see what happens, obviously, with Amari.
While we're just on the topic of Garrison, obviously the highlight was the absolutely ridiculous poster slam that just kind of shows off his athleticism, his length, the the spurts that we've talked about ad nauseum about him, that, he's a guy that when he puts it all together, that dude looks like a pro. Can he put it together for extended stretches? That's why it's dumb to even say like, well, I'm glad that he got that opportunity, because it came as a result of a very important injury. I'd rather him not get that opportunity, because it means that Amari's on the floor. But if we had to get to that point where Brandon had to see some extended run with Amari out, I could not have been more impressed with just his readiness and his assertiveness. I think, watching back the film, running it back a second time, I almost took his assertiveness for granted, because that was just kind of when you're figuring yourself out as a basketball player, and you have so much untapped potential and you have those raw tools, you're just kind of like figuring out when to dig into your bag and like how to unveil it to the basketball world. Like, that's kind of a situation that Brandon Garrison was in. So to see him in real time make assertive decisions and say, I'm going to I'm going to seal, I'm going to get my spots, and I'm going to attack, and I'm not going to have any second or third doubt about it. I'm going to attack, and I'm going to kill you. For him to operate that way was just so much more advanced, and I think I gave him credit for coming in, that if you do need to sit Amari for a little bit longer than necessary, Brandon's the guy I trust. Like, Brandon really, really looked the part. It was a size differential. We understand that what happens when he goes up against Malawak with Duke, like, we'll see. But given the circumstances, I thought he was tremendous. I really thought Brandon Garrison was awesome.
I did too. And when it comes to saying that you question maybe he's ready, it's kind of maybe the long run, right? Like the highs and the lows being ready. But at some point he will be. And I thought he responded last night. And his game is different. Like, the way that he plays is different, than Amari. Like, Amari's court vision and things that Amari does offensively. And then being in college basketball as long as he has been, obviously that's an advantage that he has over Brandon Garrison. But to me, you're talking about a guy that came in from playing in a high major conference against very good teams. He got opportunities. It's not like he was riding the bench as a freshman. Like, this is a guy that's played college basketball. And to me, if you put him in and he plays, he's only going to get better, and he's going to show some of those flashes that give him the high upside of being a possible NBA player at some point. A guy that was one of the higher ranked kids on this team, coming out of high school. So they're different, but I do have confidence that if Kentucky had to play him extended minutes, and then he kind of leads a chunk of the minutes at the 5, that you can mix and match. And you saw some different lineup combinations last night where they get a little smaller at times. So, like, there's versatility there with Mark Pope, but I do have confidence that Brandon Garrison is going to be a very good player, not next year for Kentucky, but I think this year. I think he's going to make impacts. And you got to see him last night. His dunk, why in the world would someone even attempt to even go there? I thought he did an excellent job early in the game, fighting for position, continuing to fight the post. And I think he ended up getting a pass over top, or like a high-low situation, and he converted it. Like, that was commitment to his post up and understanding. You got to see his feet and his footwork. So obviously in 19 minutes, is that the sweet spot this season, or is he going to have some games where he goes and plays 25, 26? We don't know. Obviously, that will depend on Kentucky's health at the interior. But I saw enough in 19 to tell me that if Kentucky had to extend it, that he can make an impact. It's a different impact, but he can be impactful for what Kentucky can do.
Yeah, I have no idea what that defender was thinking. We'll say that Andrew Carr stepped up in a really solid way in some spurt minutes at the 5 as well. Ainsley Almanor played some okay minutes. First glance on a rapid reaction last night, I kind of called out Ainsley and said just wasn't showing what I was kind of hoping and expecting out of him. Going back and rewatching, not as bad as I maybe thought on first watch, but you just kind of react in real time. Hey, that's what a rapid reaction is designed for. Ainsley looked fine. Definitely could get more, but for what his role is the 8th, 9th man, it's fine. But those two in kind of spot minutes did did just fine. We even got like Kobe Brea spurt at the 5. It was weird, just trying to just see what this team is and what you have. There was just so much to like. Gotta just see what the size differential is going to be, and when we do face steeper competition, how those adjustments work. Because Ainsley at the 5 against, Duke's front court, will that work out? Gonzaga's stout front court, well, how will that work out? So just some different things that you just don't know until you know against real competition. But given the challenge that the sample size that we have in front of us, they did just fine. And I think I remember going back to that Fairleigh Dickinson Purdue upset. Ainsley had face up minutes against Zach Edey, so like he's not afraid of that moment necessarily. So we'll just need to see how things unfold in the regular season. Again, it's the exhibition slate. You got to just kind of take what the opponent gives you at this stage.
Well, you're going to have some floating roles, I think, on this team, and maybe Ainsley Almanor is one of those guys that has a floating role. I think Trent Noah could have a floating role. There's going to be a couple of guys that maybe their impact is here for a game or two. And then you have a stretch where maybe they don't play as many minutes, but then foul trouble or injuries or some other, or maybe just personnel and game planning kind of throws them into another role. But to me, the advantage of having a 9th, 10th, and 11th man that can knock down shots from the perimeter is a game changer for you. It's not like you're putting in a dead spot offensively onto the floor. If you leave any of those guys open, they can take and make shots. And if you can take and make shots, you can make an instant impact. And if you could be a good team defender, you can make an instant impact. And to me, Kentucky's got its top-end guys that I just don't think that they can be without. Lamont Butler at the top for me, what he does and sets the tone defensively and from a physicality standpoint is a guy that cannot miss time. Jackson Robinson for his just pure scoring ability and kind of being the guy that Kentucky's going to play through a lot. That's another one. Still figuring out Andrew Carr. I'm still trying to kind of key in some of the areas of his game that I like the most, but I really like him. And I think that he's probably one of the more intriguing pieces on this team right now. But then you're talking about those guys like Trent Noah, Ainsley Almanor, those guys that can stretch and be, number 9, number 10. If they take and make shots, Jack, they can make an instant impact. And that's what I like about Kentucky's depth is all these guys. Travis Perry, I know, didn't get the opportunities and things, but all those guys can take and make open shots. And if you can do that, you're going to get opportunities in the system. And if push comes to shove and you have to play, it's good to know that you're not just a liability out there, that you can hold your own, especially and put the ball in the basket if left open.
What do you make of Trent getting the nod over Travis in that Kentucky and off the bench role? I don't know what better way to put it. I know it's situational and positional with, given the injuries, and I might have just kind of thrust with the different lineup rotations, having to slide down a little bit, play small, kind of just led to a perfect scenario for Trent to play early. But just in a vacuum, is there anything to it, do you think?
To me, it could have been more of we've got 2 guys here. We've seen what we've got to see in practice. But maybe it's like, hey, Travis got the early opportunity in game 1. Let's give
True.
Trent the early opportunity in game 2, just because we want to give them both a shot to kind of show what they can do and put them in different spots. Like it was Trent late in game 1. And, it was Travis late in game 2. And I kind of like that you got to see both in there with those groups of guys and in moments that are where the game's not entirely put away. Because then you get real live looks. So to me, it wasn't as more about one's ahead of the other. And those are going to be the 2 that's easy to compare, right? Because they're the Kentucky kids, they're the in-state kids and things. But to me, it was more about maybe Mark Pope just switching things up and looking at a different look in a different order. But hey, Trent, to me, I've got confidence in him if he goes in here in a game, that an actual game that matters.
He showed up. He popped on tape defensively.
He did. He won a battle for a loose ball in the corner in front of Kentucky's bench. Mm-hmm. And I saw an attempt to box out every single time a shot went up. Now, there are guys on every single roster that have to be fundamentally sound guys. Trent Noah is a have to be by the books fundamental guy to have success in college basketball. We know that. Travis Perry is the same way. There have been guys at Kentucky that have to be fundamental to get minutes and stay on the floor. Those two have to. Trent, I saw it every single time a shot went up. He had his body on a body trying to fight for a rebound. He understands how to play. He was setting good screens. He's taking good shots. He makes shots. He's a bigger body guy. Like, I could see him having an opportunity just because of his frame right now. And you just never know what Kentucky needs, right? We keep talking about all these guards 1 through 3 that Kentucky has. Is there a small ball 4 or a guy that plays the 3 that can slide and play both the 3 and the 4? Does he fit that role if there's a Brandon Garrison playing the 5 beside him? I mean, Kobe Brea, I never realized how tall Kobe was at 6'7" until you see his size in person, then you see him the way he looks on film and on TV. Like, he's bigger than what I thought. I don't know why I had him listed at like 6'4", 6'5" in my mind. But you have those guys that can slide and play. And the thing that you do offensively, Jack, the system doesn't really change from if you're the 1, the 2, the 3, or the 4. You're doing a lot of the same things. It's kind of being intentional about where you place those pieces on the board and on the floor. But I like what they're doing, 1 through 10, 1 through 11, however many guys play. I think they got great depth, and I'm not really sure Mark Pope's going to really know where he wants to go with it until you get through November and into December. But I think he has a solid idea about those top 5 or 6 guys. But when you're getting production out of 7, 8, 9, and possibly 10, and it can be different production every single night, then I think you got balance that can really carry you.
You brought up Kobe. Another ho-hum performance out of him, 7 points, 2 of 8 shooting, 1 for 5 from 3, 1 rebound, no assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal, no blocks, 19 minutes. Just, I don't know, something just feels definitely, a step slow, just not totally physically there. I don't think, we know his injury history and had that kind of minor setback when he got to Lexington and really, really, really came along slowly. Just maybe not the premium product we kind of expected when we signed him out of the portal. I think he'll get there, but definitely just kind of, if you got to be nitpicky at something, I mean, when you're talking about a 71-point win and then a 31-point win against 2 Division II teams, you got to kind of nitpick at some point. And if there are things to be nitpicky about, I do feel like Kobe Brea is the one that you're still kind of waiting to see on a little bit. And on the flip side, I think Colin Chandler, rewatching the tape on him, he popped once again. The confidence that he has to shoot the ball and the feel and touch and playing off 2 feet, as Pope said often, that's really, really kind of top priority for him, kind of getting him to play off 2 feet. I thought Colin was tremendous. 7 points, 2 of 5 shooting, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 18 minutes, no turnovers. I mean, just really, really, really solid all around play. He had the dump off to Brandon Garrison for the big poster dunk, but just it feels like he's always in the right place at the right time. And I wonder if there's going to be something that kind of gives there between that Kobe and Colin kind of battle at the 2 and 3.
There's going to have to be at some point. Like, that's so you got battles, and like we said, it's easy to put Travis and Trent in the same kind of batch here, right? Because we're just talking about 2 in-state kids, but maybe they're not the ones that are really even competing. But when you look at the roster from top to bottom, there are some guys that production's going to have to happen, or there's going to be guys that are going to maybe lose a step, right? Or lose some opportunities, because that's the thing, that when you look at this roster, there's similar pieces, but one's going to have to emerge. Like, I don't see Mark Pope really playing 10 guys when it gets deep into league play, because we know how strong you have to be consistently with rotation and minutes and defensively and offensively, like all the different things that you want to be able to do, you kind of key in. But I do think that this is going to be a team that consistently plays 9, and maybe your 10th man plays a minute or 2 here and there. But on the topic of Kobe, just make shots, right? And at some point, he's going to consistently make shots. He's too good of a shooter not to. I still think that not having the summer of live action is kind of playing into some of the rust that you're seeing. Now, with Colin, one thing about Colin Chandler that stands out to me, Jack, is I'm fully convinced that he's always going to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting to spots.
Kind of that Reed Shepherd, like you just trust him. I don't know why. I'm just developing a really strong trust in him early.
He's in the right spot at all times. Like there was one play, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was Jackson Robinson that hit a three, and it was on the same sideline that the TV crew and the radio crew sit. But Colin Chandler got to the corner and drew a defender, and I can't remember. I think it might have been Jackson Robinson that took the three. There was another one though, another play in the game where there's kind of scrambled in transition. Trying to remember, I think it was Kerr that got the rebound. Who was it that fired the pass to Jackson for the three in front of the coach's box? Do you remember? Was it Kerr that threw that one? Because the way that they got, the way that they got to is you ended up with, I think Ansley was on the floor and filled the left lane and got to the corner. Lamont was kind of stuck. Used to being the guy that's maybe pushing the break and leading the break. He gets stuck, but had the discipline to get to the corner. Him getting to the corner is what got Jackson Robinson the 25-foot shot. Now, I didn't know that Jackson needed to take it from 25 feet, but he did, and he hit it. But the discipline that they have been taught and instilled for spacing purposes in transition, I'm telling you, this team is going to be a nightmare to guard in the open floor. It's different than being a nightmare to guard in the open floor under John Calipari, where you had guys that could just go put it on your head consistently and attack you and finish at the rim. It's the spacing that they run the floor with and the discipline to not shrink it that is going to make this team so hard to guard. You're going to have Jackson Robinson stepping into threes, and we still haven't got to see a whole lot of this, but Andrew Carr is going to step into some threes out of that trail position, and they're going to attack you in different ways. Now, I think the one area that is very hard to kind of key in on in exhibition play is how good are you defensively? I just don't know if you're getting an accurate assessment of what they can be, because we do know that the level of competition is not what it's going to be. And that's the end of the floor. I can watch you take and make shots all day long and say, okay, this is a team that can be pretty electric on the offensive end of the floor. If you go out here and you can't shoot, I can also tell you that's a team that's not going to be electric on the offensive end of the floor. I watched Tennessee play the other night, and they're going to regress and do some things offensively that I think they're going to struggle in some areas. And I know I told you that after I watched them practice. Well, watching Kentucky, I can tell you they're going to be really good offensively, but I do have some confidence in them defensively because I think it's being prioritized, and they got what I think are three really good defenders that are known as defenders. You got Otega, who I think can be very disruptive. You got Lamont, who you're already seeing. If you relax for a split second, Jack, he's taking the ball from you and finishing. Now, he missed a layup that he would have loved to have had back. And then when Amari Williams is healthy, and I think Brandon Garrison can add some rim protection with his size and athleticism. So that's the area that's hard to key in on. But I think here in the next 2 weeks, we'll kind of have an idea about where Kentucky's at. But the confidence in them offensively is through the roof.
Pope was asked about, getting exposed and the early struggles and just kind of some of the takeaways that he didn't love about this. Singled out the 6 offensive rebounds. Obviously, Amari Williams, in his lack of size, or his size not being in the game due to injury, obviously plays a part in that. But Pope just really outspoken about their lack of intensity on the glass. Still with 39 overall, but just that 6 number on the offensive glass. Is that a concern to you, or is that something that you think is going to get fixed organically when Amari gets back on the floor?
I think it gets fixed, but there were a couple possessions where shots went up, and I'd see 2 guys with a body, and I'd see 2 with not, and that's discipline. Where I'm talking about discipline and spacing and transition, you got to have the same discipline and awareness on the defensive end and on the defensive glass. There was one rebound where I was talking about Brandon Garrison. He was fighting for defensive position, and then ended up getting on someone's back, and he did not work to get back in front. That's just a youth play. Like, he's still a young piece. Lamont Butler was in the exact same scenario against a defender much bigger than him, and he whipped him and got back in front and ended up getting a rebound. So some of it is positioning. Some of it is awareness. How much of it is fatigue on some of these guys early in the year that they're just not – look, you can simulate these things, and you can have scrimmages, and you can do up and down in practice, but it's different when the lights are on and your blood's pumping, and it's just a completely different scenario with guys and people sitting in the stands. To me, you're getting film and you're getting some areas out of exhibitions where you can go, all right, guys, if you don't improve this, Duke's going to beat you by 20. Or if you don't key in on this area of the floor, Duke's going to beat you by 5 or 6, and it's going to be because you didn't grab 2 or 3 rebounds that you had a chance to go get. So Kentucky's ahead in certain areas, Jack, but you're behind in certain areas. The key thing is every team feels the same way. And those are the areas that I think Kentucky, especially on the glass, that I do think they'll improve, but I think it'll be more of attention to detail than it is anything else. I don't want to call it lack of effort yet. I just think it's just not having an awareness, because I'm seeing guys check, but then I'll see 2 guys not. And more often than not, I can tell you as a coach, it's going to the guy that's not boxing out. And that's just the way that the basketball bounces. So I think they'll end up getting things figured out, and they'll be fine. And if they can rebound on both ends of the floor, Jack, if you rebound offensively, this can be an even more lethal team on the offensive end, because the best time to shoot a 3 is off an offensive rebounder in transition. We've already got the transition part of this thing now. If this team can become a good offensive rebounding team, it gets more opportunities. Now on the defensive end of the floor, if you can rebound, then your defensive numbers are going to improve, because that's obviously fewer possessions the offensive team is getting. Those areas right there are going to be very important for Kentucky to kind of separate itself from what people think they can be. By the way, did you see the panel talk about, I think it was Jeff Goodman and some guys talking about who they have the most confidence in between Kentucky, Arkansas, and
I saw it shared a bunch. I didn't see the actual takeaway. I try to minimize my field of 68 content consumption.
It shocked me, put it this way, because it was like, who do you have more confidence in to make a deep run in the tournament? Kentucky, Louisville, or Arkansas? Kentucky was the overwhelming favorite in that panel, and it kind of stunned me. Now, Louisville did get a little bit, but not a whole lot of faith in Arkansas. But I thought it was interesting to see that kind of after one exhibition, this was before yesterday, that Kentucky was getting a little bit of love, and a lot of it was because their system. And somebody, I can't remember which one of them said, it said when they were asked about when it comes to do they have a guy, and it was almost like they had watched sources say, because we've talked so much that's the system that produces the offensive output for Kentucky, not individuals. So maybe they do watch it.
Yeah. Well, hey, we always appreciate it, and I'm obviously poking fun because I know Jeff Goodman is enemy number 1 in BBN world. Well, he was at least under Cal. Like, do we think that the feedback is going to be the same now with the Jeff Goodman hatred as it was then?
I think he likes Pope. I really do. And Pope was on their show just a week ago. And
I feel like he got godfathered in as a Pope fan and like Pope supporter. So now he automatically gets brownie points as like a Kentucky supporter now that Pope is here. And I feel like there's like a segment of BBN where it's like, that's not fair. You don't get to decide that like Jeff Goodman is now BBN for life. Like it doesn't work that way just because Mark Pope and him were close beforehand. Like we're still, if this is our team, as Mark Pope so eloquently says, you got to read the room on Jeff Goodman too. Like I feel like that's something that is it's like he's getting to weasel his way into BBN after years and years of bitter hatred. I don't mind Jeff. I always like poking fun of him because he knows that BBN hates his guts, and I always think it's kind of funny. So that's part of the reason why we had him on this show to debate him last summer or whatever it was, however long ago that was. So
feels like a lifetime ago, man. Feels like a lifetime ago. And I guess you can go back and say that we were right on some things. He was right on some things, right? Like about that debate. But it's no longer weird that we're in this new era of Kentucky basketball, because now it's Mark Pope's version of Kentucky basketball, and it already quickly has become the norm for me to identify this new brand that we're seeing. I haven't had the opportunity to be in that building yet at Rupp, for a game, but I'm sure that the excitement, the floor looks
It's
great,
juiced,
by the way.
man. It's juiced. Yeah.
It is, and I'm sensing a lot of fan excitement, and more so about the long term production and output from this program more than the short term. But right now, I'm a big believer in being where your feet are planted, and really enjoying the present of what we're seeing from this Kentucky team, Jack. And I think that they're going to be a very good team, and I think they're going to compete. And the first test, right? Everybody's kind of just waiting for that Duke game because that's going to be the one. And it's going. There's some people that are probably sitting there waiting to crush them, and there's some people that are probably sitting there waiting to say, I told you so. I told you this team's going to be better than what people maybe thought. But a couple of opportunities before then that Kentucky's kind of got to gear up and get ready for, and now the real stuff starts. This is where you really start to critique some things that they do or don't do.
Before we move on entirely to the regular season, I do want to get just big picture moving forward, your thoughts on, I kind of touched on this to open the show before you got on, just the idea of playing Minnesota State and Kentucky Wesleyan and these types instead of the high profile charity exhibitions and the secret scrimmages and those things. Is that something that you hope changes in the long-term future? Maybe I hope for next year, but at some point, kind of just something that we have on our radar moving forward throughout the Pope era. Like Rick Pitino said that the home and home was off with between St. John's and Kentucky. Don't you think that would be kind of the perfect charity game opportunity, especially next year for the 30th anniversary? Like, I feel like I would like to do one or the other or something to kind of just spice things up a little bit more. And, having Minnesota State as the opener and then a St. John's or something like that. I just want to get your feel on it.
I do think that you'll see Kentucky kind of dip into that and begin playing some of those charity exhibitions. They're becoming a very popular thing, and it's given you good quality basketball, good quality tape on yourselves. Like, if you're a coach right now, you're not too worried about does somebody have tape on us, because regardless of whether you're playing Minnesota State or you're playing Indiana, you're getting tape. But I think it's more about the tape you get on yourself. It's the evaluation you get on yourself in a game that does not matter. But for Mark Pope, I think it did matter. I think it mattered to play who they played, because let's say that you played one of these charity exhibitions against someone and they were ahead of you and they beat you. Then you're starting off on kind of a sour note and getting beat by a high major opponent. Right now, you're getting a couple of feel goods and you're coming out of it thinking you got a pretty solid squad. And then you get a couple of more that obviously the level of competition is going to increase this week. You're playing D1 competition now, but you kind of get an idea before you go in and you play Duke. Now in year 2, does Mark Pope's schedule different? I think so. I think you could see them on one of those charity exhibition lists.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I get.
And they're good, right? Like they're for good causes. They're the energy in the buildings in October. You just can't simulate those environments in October that what you're getting. I mean, Arkansas and Kansas the other night probably felt like a Final Four environment. Like, it's an opportunity.
And I feel like seeing the reaction to the blue-white exhibition, but the scrimmage, like, I love that event. I think it was fun, and you did get kind of a behind-the-scenes look at this team coaching and just what this team's identity is going to be behind the scenes before we got to see them in real time. But the attendance was what it was. The ticket prices were what they were. The exclusivity of it, where, it did feel like a large portion of the fan base did feel excluded from that. You do wonder if that kind of weighs on Pope at all, where you do want to make money for NIL. You got to. I mean, you got to adapt. That's kind of the middle ground that fans are kind of failing to see, is you got to get creative to make money or else you will fall behind. That is a chance. And as ugly as the 50% turnout looked on a picture, it still made a lot of money. It was still a good event in terms of what it was designed to do with NIL. But if there are more creative ways of doing that in a charity game, if whatever the case is, just use this use this preseason as kind of just a nice little foundation of, okay, here's what worked, here's what didn't. Maybe let's cut out the Wesleyan game moving forward and then find other avenues to, make money or make NIL dollars or, raise money, whatever the case is. Just use it as a nice little stepping stool and kind of use that as the foundation for next offseason, where hopefully we do get a little bit more creativity with who the exhibition opponents are. I do hope that Pope does kind of go out of its comfort zone a little bit for these early exhibition games. Maybe it's just FOMO for seeing Kansas and Arkansas play on national television on a Friday night.
Yeah, and last year you had Tennessee and Michigan State playing one of these. You have Tennessee and Indiana playing this year in one of these. So I don't know who the opponents will be for Kentucky. Maybe that's coaching relationships and things that you establish and build. Maybe Mark Pope's got somebody he's like, hey, let's get together. And maybe that's a conversation that happens over the next few months for next year. Or maybe you bring in somebody that plays a style of play that you want to see, that can maybe test you early. Now, we know a lot of this stuff was put together when it comes to non-conference, some of the classics and things that Kentucky's in. A lot of that stuff is put together before Mark Pope ever had this job, right? And some dates, like the agreement with Gonzaga. Like, there are some things that you're kind of maybe locked into that there wasn't a whole lot of room for variety and creativity in year one with Pope. Now, in year two, you've got some options to do what you want to do with the non-conference schedule. But I like what he did, Jack, because in year one, you're old, you're trying to establish your brand, you're trying to get an idea of who you are. Moving forward, if they get to that retention number that we've been talking about, then you kind of know who you are going into the year, and then you can kind of schedule to fit it. But when you're playing Duke and you're playing Ohio State and you got Louisville and you've got Gonzaga and you're going on the road to Clemson, and then you play in this league that is now this version of the SEC, you're going to get plenty of teams that'll test you. But I'm with you that at some point here, you want to see Kentucky jump on board with this charity exhibition. We know they're going to be in Maui again at some point. And they're going to participate in some things that Kentucky fans have been wanting to see. But I think that this would be another thing that the excitement of Kentucky basketball is already at a high. But if you go play a team that's a Power 4 conference opponent, or you play someone from the Big Ten or the ACC in October, I think the excitement grows even more. So I think it's definitely a no-brainer at some point you do it.
Yeah, totally agree. And Eddie Congress brought up, keep buying that Club Blue beer. I had one yesterday, actually, before the UK game, and it was absolutely delicious. So, again, our friends at Club Blue know what they're doing, and they have some other special stuff in the works for fans in the very near future. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled in the next week or two and see if we can get some similar ideas to the Club Blue beer coming out that I think fans will absolutely enjoy. Shawn, let's wrap this thing up. Regular season play is now officially here. Wright State will begin the season on Monday, Rupp Arena, 7:00. As always, what do you need to see other than the obvious? Obviously, you want Amari Williams on the floor if he's healthy, but what are some of your hopes going into the official start of regular season where the games now finally count?
To me, it's I know this is going to get boring, but it's just consistency. It's just taking that next step. And I think that this is going to be a long 4 to 5 month season of just taking next steps for Kentucky. To me, this will be the first time you're against D1 competition in a scouting report. Like Minnesota State, they could have had a scouting report, but at the end of the day, they're just outmanned. We would expect Wright State to be outmanned from a talent perspective as well, but what do they scheme up for Kentucky? And how does Kentucky handle it? Now you're getting to a point now where this stuff really matters. Do the tendencies of Mark Pope change? Do his lineups change? Does the leash get shorter with some guys? Does it grow with some guys? Like, you'll be able to kind of key in going into Duke on where he's thinking of first sub off the bench, second sub off the bench. Am I sending 2 or 3 guys in at once to relieve? Am I going with an entirely second 5 at some point? Like, he's going to mix and match and manage. So I think it's more about just kind of paying attention to the tendencies that he has. Do they mix in some zone? Do they show something in game 1 or game 2 that we haven't seen yet, just to get on tape before you play Duke, just to make them waste some time and prepare and going into preparation? So I think that right now it's just an open book. And it's exciting because everybody kind of has this open book. And, Monday is the official kickoff of the college basketball season. You're going to see a lot of teams play. This is the time of year where I think you get a lot of upsets, and you just hope you're not one of them. So be consistent, win, and get to that Duke game clean. And then let's see what Kentucky's got here in about a week or so.
Brett asks, we'll wrap up with this. Now that you've seen them play against other teams, any changes to your record predictions?
Maybe I flip my pick of losing at Clemson early. Like I'm starting to think that, I picked them to beat Duke, and I'm going to stand by that. I'm not changing. I know that Duke, obviously they're talented. They look really good, but I think that this Kentucky team in the moment has guys that are going to show up and compete and go all out for a chance to win that game. And even if, regardless of Kentucky wins or loses, I'm seeing enough from Kentucky to know that they're going to be, I think, in every game that they play. And I don't think that road environment's going to be too big. So going back to those predictions, I think that that's one I would flip in Kentucky's favor. But if you flip that one, maybe another one down the line flips against you. So I'll probably still stay with that 23 to 20, 22, 23, 24 win total. But I still think this is going to be a very good basketball team with the chance to kind of make some noise in the tournament.
Yep, totally agree. I think 23-8 was my prediction, with a win in the SEC tournament championship game. Going to be a blast in Nashville, and then Sweet 16, definitely second weekend. See what happens once you get to the second weekend, but kind of see it as a Sweet 16 SEC tournament championship team that I think we're all going to be very, very pleased with by year's end, and then kind of regroup and go into year two with a whole bunch of momentum, recruiting momentum, which, by the way, might have some of that here in the next couple of days, and might have a surprise episode if things go as we expect them to. So keep your eyes peeled. Let's say Saturday afternoon at some point. We'll see what happens there, and we'll keep get the regular season started off on a very, very, very high note, and then we'll be back Tuesday evening with our normal 8 p.m. time slot. Thank goodness we actually get to do our normal 8 p.m. time slot. And then, like I said, to start the show, once we figure out the non-conference, get through November and get into the heat of the typical, Saturday, Tuesday game schedule, we'll have a regular weekly show and pump out a little bit more of these so fans can enjoy them as always. Just like I enjoy talking to you as always, Shawn. Let's get out of here. Where can fans find your basketball work?
Yeah, if Daniel can put it up there, I still forget it. Is it _ Coach S. Smith?
There it is.
There we go. I got it. That's where you find my work.
Find me on Twitter as well.
On the KSR YouTube page.
Yeah, that's what you're literally watching it, moron. Like, you're literally experiencing my work right now. If you are watching me right now answer this question, you know where to find my work. You can find me on Twitter at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Go subscribe to KSR Plus. Plenty of promos. Just go join the membership page. It's automatically there for you. A discount offer that you just have to see to believe, Shawn. It's an absolute blast. Community is growing over there. A lot of fun stuff coming with the cool events. We're going to be down in Atlanta. We're going to be at Overtime Elite to go hang out with Jasper Johnson before the event. I'm going to be doing these live shows before the game, kind of interacting with fans beforehand. We got 11,000 people watching us walking to Rupp Arena yesterday before an exhibition game. So we're going to do more of that absolute nonsense stuff, especially down in Atlanta for that big matchup. So plenty of fun stuff coming your way. The rapid reactions are going to keep on coming. Those have been an absolute hit outside of Rupp Arena. So stick with this KSR YouTube page, and we'll be back next time for another Jam Packed Sources Say podcast. We will see you then.